A quiet snowfall at the old farmhouse. Snow has its own way of asking for silence. Not the empty kind, the full kind, the kind that seems to hold its breath. Tonight it's falling over an old farmhouse at the edge of a sloping field. The kind of house that's leaned into its own age rather than fought it. The roofline dips slightly in the middle, like a spine that's carried too many winters to stand perfectly straight anymore. The porch steps sag on the left side, worn smooth there by decades of the same two boots, morning after morning, long before you ever arrived. It began snowing just after supper, while the sky still held a thin blue seam along the horizon. It hasn't stopped since. It isn't trying to prove anything, not piling up in drama, not rushing towards some final depth. It's simply arriving, flake after flake, the way it always has here, on nights very much like this one, going back further than anyone left in this house could properly count. You're at the kitchen table. A mug sits between your palms, warmth soaking slowly into your skin, and beside it, half forgotten, a small tin box someone left open earlier, old photographs inside, their corners curled soft with age, edges gone the color of weak tea. You didn't mean to look through them tonight. But here you are, one photograph held loosely between two fingers. A woman standing in this very doorway decades ago, laughing at something just out of frame. Her hair is pinned up in a style you don't recognize from any decade you could name. Behind her, the porch looks almost exactly the same, except the swing hangs from a tree that's younger, thinner, not yet grown into the wide, gnarled shape it holds now. You turn the photograph over. No date, no name, just a faint smudge of pencil that might once have said something before enough years rubbed it soft. You set it down gently, propped against the tin box, facing outward, as if she might like to watch the room for a while too. The kettle on the stove ticks quietly as it cools, the metal contracting in small, patient clicks. Through the window above the sink, the field stretches out white and endless, broken only by a line of fence posts wearing thick new caps of snow. And further out, the low black shape of the barn, holding its outline in the dark like some old animal curled asleep on its side. A sound reaches you from the next room, low, wooden, unhurried. The fire, shifting a log deeper into its bed of coals. You rise, mug still cradled in one hand, and follow the sound, your footsteps announced by floorboards that have creaked this exact note for longer than the house has had electricity. The room you step into holds you the way old rooms do, dark beams running low overhead, close enough to feel protective rather than confining, and a stone hearth dominating the far wall, its fire glowing in shades of deep amber and orange, tended by no one, needing no one, simply doing what fires do once they've been burning long enough to stop trying. An old couch sits angled toward the flames, cushions worn into soft, familiar hollows by years of exactly this kind of evening. A quilt lies folded over one arm, patchwork faded into something closer to the memory of color than color itself, blues that have gone the pale gray of late afternoon sky. Reds softened to something more like dusty rose. Near the hearth, curled tight on a woven rug, an old gray cat lifts her head half an inch at your approach, considers you for a moment with flat green eyes, decides you're not worth waking fully for, and tucks her nose back beneath one paw. You sit. The couch receives your weight with its own small, familiar sigh. Cushions folding around you the way they folded around countless other evenings, just like this one. You reach down without quite thinking about it and rest 2 fingers near the cat's ear. She doesn't stir, but a low, rough purr starts somewhere in her chest, barely audible over the fire's quiet murmur. The fire pops once, an ember breaking loose, glowing bright orange for the length of a single breath, before fatting to gray ash among its neighbors. You watch it go, the way you might watch a firefly disappear into tall grass. Through the window nearest the couch, snow continues falling over the yard, over the old wooden swing, chains dusted white, hanging motionless from a bare branch. Over the long gravel drive, already smoothed into a pale, featureless path leading toward a road you can't see from here, and don't need to. Over the low stone wall at the field's edge, its sharp corners softening hour by hour into something rounder, gentler, less like a boundary, and more like a suggestion. Nothing out there moves. Nothing seems to want to. You pull the quilt from the arm of the couch and draw it over your legs. It's heavier than it looks, the good kind of heavy, the kind that seems to press the day's small tensions a little further from your shoulders with every minute you sit beneath it. It smells faintly of cedar, and beneath that, something else, a perfume perhaps, worn so deeply into the fabric over so many years that it stopped being a scent and become something closer to a memory the blanket itself seems to hold. Your tea has cooled slightly in your hands, gone from hot to warm, the kind of warm that feels less like heat and more like comfort with the temperature turned down. You take a slow sip. Cinnamon, and beneath it, something darker, molasses, maybe, or the last trace of clove, something you can't quite name and don't feel any particular need to. You glance toward the small table beside the couch, where a single candle burns low in an old brass holder, wax pooling unevenly down one side, the flame leaning slightly with some draft you can't feel, but can somehow sense. The way you sometimes sense a room has a memory of movement, even when everything in it has gone still. The old clock somewhere behind the wall ticks on, steady, unbothered, marking a night that clearly has nowhere urgent to be. You find yourself listening to it for a while, the way you might listen to rain or a stranger's heartbeat through a wall, not really thinking about it, just aware of its presence, comforted by its persistence. The cat shifts against your leg, resettling into a tighter curl, her paw twitching once, chasing something in a dream, perhaps. Some small creature across some field she's never actually seen, though her whole life has apparently been lived within a few hundred feet of this hearth. You think idly of the photograph on the kitchen table, woman laughing in the doorway. You wonder, without needing an answer, who she was to this house. A grandmother, perhaps, or a great aunt. Someone whose name might still be written somewhere in an old family Bible, tucked into a drawer you haven't opened yet, in a room you haven't yet found reason to enter. The fire shifts again, quieter now, and the light in the room dims by the smallest fraction, growing steadier, warmer, more orange than yellow. Somewhere above you, the house settles, a long, low creak of timber and joint. The sound of a building leaning fully into rest after a long day of simply standing, patiently, against the cold. At some point, you rise. Not because you need to, nothing here requires anything of you, but because your legs want to stretch, and because the loft upstairs has been quietly present in your mind since you first arrived, the way a destination sometimes waits patiently at the edge of your thoughts until you're ready for it. The cat doesn't follow. She simply opens one eye, watches you stand, and closes it again, entirely unbothered, as if she's seen 1,000 people rise from that exact couch on 1,000 exact nights, just like this one, and has never once found the sight worth losing sleep over. You carry the candle with you, its small flame throwing long, soft shadows up the narrow staircase as you climb. The steps creak beneath your weight, each one a slightly different note, as though the wood remembers not just years of footsteps, but the particular rhythm of each person who ever climbed here. Quick children, tired parents, an old woman once, perhaps, climbing slowly with a hand pressed flat against the wall for balance. Halfway up, a small window interrupts the wall, glass old enough to hold a faint ripple in it, distorting the view of the snow-covered yard below into something softer, dreamier, like looking through a thin sheet of water. You pause there for a moment, candle held low, watching snow fall silently past the glass, each flake catching the faint light for just an instant before continuing down into darkness. At the top of the stairs, a narrow hallway leads past 2 closed doors. Rooms you don't enter tonight. Rooms that feel, somehow, like they belong to someone else's story rather than yours. Before opening into the loft itself, the loft is small, its ceiling sloped low enough that you instinctively duck your head near the edges, though the center holds enough height to stand freely. A single round window sits at the far end, rain-streaked glass replaced here by a soft dusting of snow along its outer sill. The world beyond reduced to vague, pale shapes, the suggestion of trees, the suggestion of sky, nothing sharp enough to demand your attention. The bed waits exactly where you somehow already knew it would be, wide, quilted, piled high, with blankets in layered shades of deep blue and soft gray. The kind of bed that seems, in its own quiet way, to have been expecting you specifically. For quite some time now, you set the candle on a small nightstand beside it, its flame throwing gentle, moving shadows across the low, sloped ceiling. A stack of books sits there too, spines faded past reading, though one lies open, face down, as though someone set it aside mid-sentence years ago and simply never returned to finish the thought. You sit at the edge of the bed. The mattress gives slightly beneath you, soft in the particular way that only comes from being exactly the right kind of worn-in, not old in the tired sense, but old in the sense of having been well and steadily loved. Far below, muffled by floors and years, you can still hear the faint, occasional pop of the dying fire, and beneath that, always, the snow, not a sound exactly, more an absence of sound, a hush pressing gently against every window in the house. You lie back. The pillow meets the back of your head, the way pillows only ever do in the moments right before sleep. Perfectly, without adjustment, without effort, as though it had been shaped somehow around the exact contour of tonight's particular tiredness. The blankets settle over you with their familiar weight, heavier than they look, warm in the way that only wool and years combined can ever quite achieve. Above you, through the round window, you can just make out the pale gray nothing of an overcast sky. No moon, no stars, just clouds and falling snow, and the soft, endless suggestion of more still to come. It feels, somehow, like exactly the right sky for a night like this. You listen. The snow against the roof up here is closer, more present than it was downstairs. A soft, constant whisper just above your head, as though the whole house were being gently, endlessly touched by something that means it no harm. Only company. Your breathing slows, matching itself, without any effort on your part, to that quiet rhythm, in and out, steady, unhurried in the truest sense, the kind that asks nothing of you and expects nothing in return. Somewhere below, you imagine the fire settling further into embers, and the cat, still curled on her rug, twitching occasionally through whatever dream currently holds her. You imagine the photograph on the kitchen table, still propped against its tin box, the laughing woman still facing outward into the dark, keeping her own quiet watch over a kitchen she perhaps once filled with noise and flour and the smell of bread, decades before you ever knew this house existed. You wonder briefly, distantly, what she would think of the snow tonight. Whether she watched nights exactly like this one, from this exact window, wrapped in blankets that might be the very same blankets now settled over you. The thought drifts rather than lands, the way thoughts do, this close to sleep, less like conclusions, and more like clouds passing slowly overhead, present for a moment, then simply gone, replaced by the next soft shape drifting into view. Your eyelids grow heavier now, not the tense, restless kind of tired, but the loose, unwound kind, the way a rope finally goes slack once a long day's work has been fully set down. The room blurs gently at its edges. Candlelight and shadow fold into one another, warm and increasingly formless, and somewhere beyond the window, the snow continues exactly as it has all evening, patient, steady, indifferent to whether anyone remains awake to witness it, indifferent to hours or seasons, or the particular lives lived briefly within these walls. Your thoughts thin out further, wide and slow now, drifting the unhurried way clouds drift when there's no wind left to push them anywhere in particular. A half-formed memory of the cat's purring, the shape of a laughing face in an old photograph, the low, steady creak of stairs beneath feet that were never quite your own, and yet, somehow, tonight, feel like they might as well have been. The candle beside you gutters once, the flame bending low before straightening again, small and steady, content to keep its quiet watch a while longer. Somewhere far below the farmhouse roof, the fire dims to little more than a faint orange glow among gray ash. The cat sleeps on, undisturbed, exactly where she always sleeps. The old clock behind the wall continues its patient ticking, marking nothing in particular, needing nothing in particular, simply continuing, the way old houses and old clocks and old winters always seem to continue, long after anyone has stopped keeping close track of them. And above it all, the snow keeps falling, steady, endless, unbothered by the hour, settling gently over the barn, over the fence posts, over the swing hanging still from its bare branch, over the whole quiet, sloping field, and over you, finally, completely, carried the rest of the way into sleep by nothing more than the soft, certain sound of snow against an old farmhouse roof.